Thank you for joining us today. Our webinar today is going to cover cattle preg checking presented by the director of Check-Diné College's Land Grant Office, Benita Litson. My name is Jessie Jim. I am the field coordinator for the New Mexico NAPS 6 program. Donet Schlenigi e Austrian Schlenton on Bisney Bushes chain, Chiji Dashi Che, Torichin Dashnella, Akuta Sun Schle. This webinar is being recorded as with all our past webinars and will be available on our Facebook page and YouTube channel for viewing by tomorrow. So please hold your questions to the end. We will have a short Q&A session after Benita's presentation. So before we begin with today's presentation, I would like to give some recognition to our co-sponsors for this event, the Western Extension Risk Management Education Center and Check-Diné Inc. for allowing the New Mexico NAPS 6 project to provide this opportunity for our producers to learn about agricultural programs available in the local area and important agricultural topics. So I'm going to quickly go over our New Mexico NAPS 6 program in a couple of slides before I turn the screen over to Benita. New Mexico Native American Producer Success Project, or NAPS 6 project in short, is a collaborative effort between Check-Diné Inc., a nonprofit organization, the New Mexico Cooperative Extension Services, and the Check-Diné College Land Grant Office. We currently have 2 projects operating in both New Mexico and Arizona. The New Mexico 6 field staff consists of myself and Jana Johnson. The Arizona NAPS 7 field staff are Sadie Lister and Sharon Sandman. So the project is being funded by USDA's Office of Partnership and Public Engagement and the Outreach and Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers program. The overall goal of the NAPS project is to increase the profitability and long-term sustainability of Navajo farmers and ranchers. To help us achieve this goal, there are some activities that we are currently providing in 4 key areas, which include improving Navajo farm and ranch operations through a series of workshops focusing on crop-related topics and livestock-related topics. We are also increasing our Navajo farmers and ranchers' knowledge of and access to available programs and technical assistance provided by USDA, BIA, Navajo Nation, New Mexico Cooperative Extension Services, Check-Diné College, Land Grant Office, and other professionals. This is being accomplished through our resource fairs held annually. If you missed our resource fair this year, it's okay because we were able to host virtually, and those sessions are available on our Facebook and YouTube channel. We are also strengthening the organizational capacity of the Navajo Farmer and Rancher Congress to address the current and future needs of the Navajo farmers and ranchers. If you are interested in being part of the Congress, please contact us. And last but not least, facilitating Navajo farmers and ranchers' use of USDA programs such as NRCS, FSA, and RMA programs. So, which brings us to today. Before I turn the screen over, I just want to say thank you, Benita, for your great presentation yesterday regarding artificial insemination. I learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners and our viewers did as well. So let's go ahead and get started with today's cattle preg check presentation provided by Benita Litson.
Okay. Well, good afternoon again. This is Benita Litson with sorry, the director of the land grant office here at Diné College. Again, apologize for my service, and I hope I don't get kicked off again. But today we're going to be talking about the cattle pregnancy check as a management tool, as a part of your operation. So let's see if this works. Let me move to the next screen. Let me know if you guys see the screen changes. All right, so basically, when you're going to go into cattle operation, you want to at least know what breed you're going to be selecting for. So making that decision. A lot of folks, they're all, I guess, wanting something different. Angus is primarily pretty dominant just because Angus does a really good job in regards to advertising the particular breed, also the meat quality. And so, but we see a lot of producers wanting to go into Herefords, and we have folks going into like Coriantes. So it really is dependent upon who you are as a producer and what your goals are. You also need to understand your rangeland or your forage availability to be able to make some decisions in regards to the breed that you have. A lot of cases, you got to understand how much your animal would eat. So your larger breeds, such as your Simmentals, your Charolais, they're much bigger cattle. So of course they eat 2.5% of their body weight per day. So you got to have that much food available for them. So therefore, a lot of folks go with the smaller frame breeds. So those are your Angus or your Hereford breeds. Just to ensure that you have enough forage on the ground to be able to have that cow maintain themselves. The other is understanding how much water you have available for your herd. On Navajo, that's definitely a challenge. A lot of us rely on windmills or earthen dams. Sometimes those earthen dams are broke or dry, so that makes it difficult for us to create some sort of management plan as we proceed forward. Again, I just mentioned, understanding how much your animals eat per day or drink per day, and that's going to help you make some of your decision as in regards to how much cattle you can have on the ground, depending on your range and conditions. So moving forward, so the next thing is knowing what your operation goal is. So if you're looking at a cow-calf operation, you want to probably have 100% calf crop. If you're looking for a specific breed, like I said, if you want to be a known, purebred breeder, that might be something that you're interested in. If you're looking at selling off of your calves at a certain time, if you're a beef meat producer, those are different goals. So based on the goals that you have, your overall goals, it definitely drives how you're going to make some certain decisions with your operation. So breeding management is one of those. And it's very, very important part of your operational goal because in any one of those goals that you're thinking about, you're hoping that you're going to get a calf on the ground per cow, looking for that 100% cow, calf dropping. Also, creating your strategies to a breeding management system. So just for instance, if you're, like I said, thinking about sales, you really look at the annual sale, the different patterns that it holds throughout the year. So you might be wanting to sell earlier October before, we end up really flooding the market because sometimes the market's a little higher. So you might be able to track the market a little bit to be able to ensure that you have certain weight calves during that sale period. And based on that, you can create your management plan. The next few slides, we'll talk about gestation tables. The other things are like beef production. If you're saying that you're going to sell, get your animals processed at a certain weight and you have to do that year round, definitely, I think that's something that you have to really manage on within your herd to make sure that you're going to meet those weights. So you might have year-round breeding program, but making sure you're keeping track of that. And for most of us on Navajo, I mentioned yesterday, we're on open range system, so it makes it difficult for us to create a breeding management system. And therefore, I was saying AI could be a tool to help you really work on your genetics and closing that calving gap. The other things are understanding your constraints. That just means what are the things that hinder you from creating a breeding management plan. The other is making those tough decisions after you learn what you are doing, getting better at it, what kind of cows you want to keep. If you have an open cow, are you willing to sell it? The best thing to do is to sell it, but a lot of folks don't want to sell off their herds, and that's a challenge. But that's what I mean by making those tough decisions. Next, we have understanding your body condition score for your livestock as you go into a breeding program. So here we just have a tool that's numbered, basically it's usually 1 through 9. If you see the picture on the far right, you could see that one is a very emancipated, cow that definitely needs a lot of attention. As you move forward to like your 3s, 4s, and 5s, they're definitely a lot more healthier. We're looking at possibly a 5 or 6, but to be honest, on Navajo, that's really, really hard to do just because of our dry climate and conditions. And we find that 3 to 5 is probably one of the best bets to at least increase your herd, breeding program for us, and we see it happening. So we definitely have some cows out here that are definitely roughing it out and learning how to survive in these rough conditions. As you go into like your higher BCS scores, it's definitely going to cost you a lot more money longer term for your operation, just because that cow is consuming so much. And then you also have the possibility of not having it be fertile, or if it is pregnant, you might have dystocia problems or problems with calving. So in preparation to calving, of course, we're thinking of a BCS between 5 and 7, and that's pretty much for I think overall places that have lots of green, lush grass. But like I said, on Navajo, for us, it's probably going to be anything above 3 to a 5. That's something that works well for us. Scoring your cattle 60 to 90 days prior to calving, just to make sure that you understand that your cow going into calving season is going to be able to maintain itself, be able to produce milk, and carry that calf the last 2 months of its pregnancy. So those are definitely the most important times. If you're not seeing the conditions that you want, you probably have to start supplementing your feed and increasing some of that feed availability, or make those tough decisions that if you cannot do that, maybe sell your cow off as P3s. The other is, BCS of 4 definitely is something I think for us, I think it's probably what we can consider what you would want for BCS of between 5 and 7. But most places, if you're under 4, definitely, like I said, you're going to have to really work on trying to get that animal up to its nutritional standard. When you have to think about post-calving times too, so once your calf drops on the ground, that cow is going to be lactating. You're going to have to support the calf. So definitely the feed has to stretch that much longer. In addition, that cow is healing and getting ready to be serviced in the next few months again. And so you have to make sure that cow is healthy enough to be able to repair itself to, get pregnant again in the next 82 days. Like I said earlier, anything higher than an 8 is going to cost you more money than needed. Here we have our gestation table. So basically it's just a table of dates. On the columns you have your the most, I guess the column on the left is going to be the date of service. So if you put in a bull, just use the first line as an example, on January 1st, you should be calving around October 10. And so, for depending on where you are across the Navajo Nation, depending on when you want that calf to drop, you can really use this table to identify when you should start putting in your bull into the herd and making these type of decisions. So this table is really, really helpful. I always say plan backwards. So if you're planning for a sale in, say, October or November, and you're saying your weaning weight is going to be 600 pounds, just on average, a calf should be gaining 100 pounds a month up to that, 600-pound weaning weight. So if you're going to sell around that 600-pound, you're going to come back 6 months and you're expecting your calf to drop, earlier in April or March. Then based on that, you can determine what your service date should be. So this table is definitely important as you put together what your breeding program should look like. So some of the benefits to Preg check in your herd definitely is to determine, your cull cattle. Like I said, you don't want to keep an open cow. That's not going to give you a calf because it's, consuming the same forage, and it's taking away from your pregnant cattle, and also what's going to be giving you a calf. So you have to make that tough decision of selling those open cows. The other things, like I said, if you're thinking about sale, you're looking at weights, you're looking at uniform in your cattle herd, whether it's by color, by size. Those really make a difference as you sell your livestock or your calves off, whenever that happens. And I always tell my producers, when you're selling your calves off, you have every right to go into the sorting pen and tell them to sort by steers, by color, by heifers, just to help you a little bit more in regards to getting some, return back on what you're investing into. So anything, you might have some 600-pounders, 10 of them, and you have maybe 2 that are a lot smaller frame, that's going to throw everything off. So just even making that decision of pulling those 2 out of your 10 and let 8 go in as heavier weight, that's going to definitely give you that advantage market-wise. Other things are, you can detect some abnormalities in your cows earlier, so you can make decisions of getting rid of them and finding out some different issues that you might have, and that might cause you problems further on within your operation. Identifying the stage of pregnancy, and it just helps you, especially for us on Navajo. A lot of us are open range grazers, so we have cattle dropping from February all the way to August, and so that's not ideal, but we're kind of stuck in that particular disadvantage. But you as a producer, using Preg check as a part of your tool, you're able to kind of make some decisions that this cow is going to calf right when we're going into winter season, when we don't have, the plants are going dormant, those type of things. It's not going to have the same forage available as if it was in the springtime. So you're able to maybe sell them off as a pair and try to get your cattle back into some sort of uniform breeding pattern. But it definitely helps you in making some decisions. So I listed 3 things I think is worth trying as part of your cattle pregnancy testing. So we have the blood drawing, rectal palpation, and your ultrasound. I've kind of put the pictures below. You have just, palpating, just meaning you're going in, you're feeling for the reproductive tracts, and kind of feeling around for signs of pregnancy. And a lot of times you see like inflammation in the blood supply to the calf, and so you can kind of feel those the more you do it, the better you get at it. But it definitely needs to take a lot of practice. The other that we have been using through our office is an ultrasound machine. So, and that's been really helpful. We're all at different stages of utilizing the ultrasound machine. Sometimes, if you just want to know if your cow's open or pregnant, we can do that. If you're good at using the machine, you can actually identify the calf, look at the eye socket size or the head socket size, and kind of determine the date of when that calf is expected to drop, or how far along that calf is in the pregnancy. The other form is going to be drawing blood. And so you could draw the blood, send that into a lab, and be able to get some information right off. So, of course, the supplies needed in blood pregnancy testing, you're going to need quite a bit. You need to be able to order either your Vacutainer sets, which is already, like the little red top blood collection tube with a little needle that you can, plug up along the vein, and it definitely vacuums right into the container easily. And that's not really accessible. So things that are accessible are your syringes, your needles, and still getting that red top and being able to move that blood into the red top collection tube. You want to at least keep the blood, cool, not cold, but cool. You need to be able to order the supplies. This cost, looking at some labs around the country, it's around $2.50 per test, meaning blood sample. You also have to consider shipping and additional lab fees. You also need to understand that since you have blood in this particular shipment, some places don't ship it. Just an example for us, if we're shipping beef out to anyone, there's a lot of folks, and Gallup used to do it, but we heard the last time Gallup will not be sending out any biohazard, stuff as you would normally. So finding a place that's going to be able to ship, blood to a lab is definitely important. So doing your homework. So basically what happens, you can take the blood, draw the blood along the jugular of the cow. But of course, if you're a cattle producer, that's kind of tough. You have the cow in the chute, and right around the neck areas where you kind of, catch the cow. And sometimes if your cow is not standing still, it moves around a lot. So you're going to have to find that jugular and be able to draw blood. The easier part, I think, for first timers or just beginners is just working from the hind end, lifting up the tail. And as you see in the picture, you're going to lift up the tail, and right down the center, there's a huge vein that you would be able to hit. And so the best way is to collect from that area. But you also want to make sure you have some alcohol or some sort of cleaning, just to make sure that area is clean, because of course you're dealing with the hind end with a lot of manure. So at least cleaning it off with a napkin. Alcohol is probably the best bet, and then going in there with your needle. Next is going to be rectal palpation. So I feel like this takes a lot of practice. As you start going into rectal palpation or ultrasound, you need to be able to learn the reproduction anatomy. So understanding that, where the cervix would be, and then understanding what the uterine horns may look like, where it sits in the cow, where the bladder is, but just really understanding, the anatomy of this section, because when you go in, you're going in blind, just by feel. And sometimes when you go in, you're just feeling a lot of mushy gushy, stuff. And so it's really hard to feel for what you're trying to look for. So it takes some practice. Most of the times they tell you, enter with your left hand, because if you're alone, you're going to need your right hand to be able to write down the ear tag number, what you're seeing, what you're noticing. If you don't have help, your right hand, your dominant hand's the one that's gonna be able to, you're gonna be able to do stuff with it in case anything happens. So you're gonna need a sleeve, a long sleeve, and basically go in with your hand like a cup, and what you're just gonna kind of palpate, just mean feeling around, using, you know, pressure onto toward the bottom, what you would say your reproductive tract. So you would be able to feel the cervix and then moving down. And sometimes if the cow is further along in its pregnancy, you might even actually hit the head of the calf, you know, the hoof of the calf. But basically you'll see that, or you'll feel the horn being fuller, meaning full of fluid. And so at that point, you're able to determine whether what stage of pregnancy that cow is in. So below, there's a picture of a reproductive tract. So I would say learn how to do this. I know it's nasty, but at least, you know, visualize and seeing and feeling what you're going to potentially feel for while you're going in blind. You have a better idea of what you're feeling for. So it does take a lot of practice. There's a lot of schools out there available. They are pricey. They're usually 3 days long. But the more you do this, the more, you know, you get better at doing so. Next is ultrasound. So this is a little bit more high tech. Of course, you're going to have a probe, and you saw in the picture ahead before the slide, the hand that was going in was actually holding a probe. But in this case, we have what we call a wand. So that way you can put the probe onto the wand and go ahead and still go in rectally and be able to maneuver the probe around to kind of identify what you're looking for. So again, understanding the reproductive anatomy is important, so you know what you're looking at. If you look at the pictures below, A and B is actually a picture of the uterine horn, and so you're identifying different things within that horn and the development of what might be happening. And so usually with the ultrasound, you're seeing a lot of black, and when you start seeing white, you see a lot of tissue. So a lot of cases when the fetus is a lot smaller, you can start seeing the backbone, the bones start to develop. You can actually see the entire fetus. The first thing that, of course, you kind of start looking for sometimes is going to be the heartbeat, and you see this sort of like the little flickering that happens. The easiest way that we teach our students is looking for what we call cotyledons, which are the little round, mass that's within the uterus that helps to transfer nutrients back and forth between the cow and the calf. And so, you start seeing a lot of little balls all over the place around the uterus, and that's just to indicate, your cow is pregnant. And like I said, sometimes as it gets bigger, you're able to see certain parts of the body. So this is a really nice tool. It's hard. I know the only veterinarian, I don't know if Navajo Nation veterinarians have the ultrasound machine now, but a few years ago they did not. They had one on site, which you could not be, it wasn't mobile. So they might have, a mobile one. The one we have is the Ibex 3000. As you see, it's on the picture in the yellow. It's tiny. It does the job. The other veterinarian that I know has the same system is Dr. Oh gosh, I forget his name, but he's out of Winslow. And he was able to train us to utilize this particular system. And so he's always willing to assist in that capacity. So moving forward, this is my last slide. So looking at cost, the most effective, cheapest price is going to be learning how to palpate. You can do that. It's just the cost of the glove, your time, probably some lube, and being able to identify whether or not your cow is pregnant or not. Like I said, the more you do this, the easier it gets for you. having someone there by your side to coach you is definitely a plus. We were fortunate to work with Dr. Wenzel from New Mexico State University, who's definitely a really, really good coach. He'll stand there by your side and kind of guide you through what you should be feeling as you're going in, and really share with you, like I said, if you've seen the reproductive tract outside, you start to visualize what you might be feeling for, and he helps you guide you through that process. The other is hiring a vet tech, and making a technician to be able to do the ultrasound machine, which could be cheap, but of course a vet call is expensive. You know, you have your $25 charge, then if they're going to go out to the field, there's a field charge, and then you have the mileage charge, and then your per head charge. So definitely that's, you know, it can get pricey. Your blood sampling, depending on the herd size, could be the next cost effective. You know, if you have a small herd size, it's not going to be as pricey, but if you're looking at herds over 100, you know, cows that you're going to test, you're looking at $2.50 per vial, and not to mention the things that you're going to collect it with, you know, the supplies, and you're probably adding about $500 into that particular investment. So it really depends on, I guess, what you're looking for. Again, Preg checking is just a tool that is used to help you become better managers on your operation. With that concludes my presentation. I tried to go through that pretty fast, and I hope I didn't do it too fast, but it hopefully was informative.
Oh yes, it is. It was informative. That was a great presentation, Benita. I'll go ahead and open up the floor to some questions. If you would like to directly ask your question, raise your hand and I'll unmute you. If not, the chat box is also available. In the meantime, I do have a couple of questions for you. So, as far as ultrasound testing, does your office provide this service for producers at a cost, or does your office provide some sort of, I guess, like a Preg checking certification course?
We do not have a Preg checking certification course. However, you know, we have been involved with at least 2 different training programs where it helps us as a staff to be able to learn how to use the system. The interns involved into learning how to do ultrasound. As far as having us go out into the field, we have a lot of you know, projects that we are doing that are kind of producer specific, meaning we recruit producers to be a part of it, and they're a part of the program for X amount of years. With those folks, you know, we normally do Preg check as a part of that program. When we do get producers asking, we always say, I think the best way to do this is trying to create a training around it. So if they're willing to host a training at their corral and invite their neighboring farmers and ranchers, we can definitely put it into a training session so it still becomes free for the producer, and
Right.
and it shares a learning experience for us.
Okay, great. All right, so we have a question here. Okay, the question is, how long can you keep a cow to reproduce? Is it as long as they can reproduce?
It gets tough, you know, as they get older. Of course, it's going to be hard to maintain nutrition. I think it really depends on looking at their teeth and how healthy they look. If your cow, I mean, we've seen 12-year-old cows still giving birth and looking healthy, but in a lot of cases, I think around 8, 9-year-old is good to be able to ensure that your cows, you're not going to jeopardize the health of your cow. But I remember we went up to an area where you guys are from, Jess, not too far from Crown Point, but the producers were telling us that one of the cows we were looking at was a 4-year-old, and it absolutely had no teeth at all. And so that was really surprising to us. And we were saying, you know, it could be depending on what it's eating that it already wore the teeth down at that young of an age. But that would help with that producer selling that that cow off before we went into the winter months, or depending on so really thinking about the nutrition of that animal and how healthy you can keep it. I think that's how you should be able to make your decision.
Right. Okay. Okay. So there's another question. Could you provide examples of normalities?
Formalities?
Normalities? Sadie? That's a question from Sadie.
Okay. If I'm understanding the question right, maybe I guess finding the people that know how to either do palpation, pregnancy tests, find the people who might have the ultrasound machine, find another rancher that really knows what they are doing, so you can ask them some questions. I think maybe if it's formalities in regards to contacting our office and being able to utilize our services, just making sure that you're communicating with us and trying to calendar out those dates. But as far as your own management program, like I said, it's really dependent upon, I think, your range line condition first, understanding what you have available, understanding your constraints, being able to understand how much head of cattle you can run in there, and then being able to start implementing what your breeding management program is going to be. So I guess really understanding what your resource availability are, if you're new to this, who can help you, who can help guide you and direct you into becoming a better cow-calf operator.
Okay. All right. Well, in regards to your contacts for preg checking, do you have like a database or a list of people or vet clinics that does preg checking?
I mean, we can provide that information, but you know, as you reach out to individuals, they already have their schedules going. So like I was saying with the veterinarian in Winslow, I know like he's booked with Hopi ranches for a good solid 3 weeks, and then he's booked with folks on new lands, and so you just really have to work around their schedule and try to get them into a schedule that would work for you. But as far as, you know, in most cases, you want to do your preg check now because we're going into the winter months, and we don't have, you know, good forage on the ground. You might have snow on the ground, and so you want to identify your cows that you want to be culling out so that it's not, you know, fighting for the same resources, food sources, water sources as the cows that may be pregnant, and is going to give you a little bit more return on your investment.
Right. Okay. Okay. I don't think we have any more questions, but thank you, everyone.
Jesse,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I do have a question, Benita. Excuse me. This is kind of an educated response on your part, I'm sure. But roughly speaking, what percent of the producers on the Navajo Nation would you think are engaged in preg checking their cattle?
Wow.
Is it half?
I am thinking, no, I think less than 5%. If you remember, looking at the old ag census, we had 9,000 cattle producers on Navajo. And I think the more progressive ones are going to be the ones that are doing the tribal ranch programs, which probably they implement this type of management system. And then the next ones are probably going to be the folks that have range management units and operating some sort of, you know, management system. I think the least ones that are probably participating are the ones that are, dealing with open range systems, the challenges of creating a breeding or a management program. So I would say less than 5%.
Plenty of opportunity
off of
for
your
us.
9,000. Correct.
Okay, you kind of answered my second question already. I was wondering what some of the major barriers are to more producers preg checking, and it's like you say, it's probably issues of being able to manage their herds as well as access to appropriate resources to carry out the preg checking practices. Would that be kind of your read on it?
Yep, that's the same way with herd health management. And so we have a lot of, I want to say, inconsistent ways we do herd health management across Navajo. And I think, like you said, it's a good start working with producers to improve not only breeding management, but putting in a herd health program.
Yeah, well, thank you. Very, very informative presentation.
Okay, in the meantime, while we're waiting on Sadie, I do have another question. How can you tell your cow is pregnant?
Well, gosh, it depends on the stages. When it's closer to dropping your calves, you're going to start seeing the full. And a lot of times, depending on your condition, your cow that is pregnant is probably you're gonna start seeing it be, reducing its body condition score, because, like I said, it's working to maintain itself. It's working to keep the baby alive. It's working to start, creating the lactating part of its whole cycle. When a cow is open, they're going to be your fattest cow out there, because they're just, like I said, they're not fighting to carry a baby. They're just concentrating on maintaining itself. So they're going to be the biggest one out there. So I would say really concentrate on maybe identifying those and getting them preg checked, so you can get rid of them, so that your cow that's struggling getting feed is able to get some feed to be able to carry out that pregnancy. So it's really different. You can start seeing the belly form. You can start seeing how it carries it, just sort of like a person.
Right. Okay. Right. So, okay. I don't know if Sadie.
I'm here now.
Okay, go ahead, Sadie.
Well, I know at the beginning of the presentation, Benita kind of said that you would have to sort your calving when you're out to sell on the market, and what she indicated was that you want to kind of take the poor ones out. You want to take like the really good ones that are 600 pounds, but she said that you'll have to look out for abnormalities. What are some of the abnormalities that we would have to look out for, other than no weight gain? That was the examples I was asking about. Sorry.
Yeah, so you could have, some reproductive or infertilities that might be happening. I know with one herd that we checked with, there was a huge mass, and we weren't sure what we were looking at, but when the veterinarian actually came in and the producer came back with us, it could be like a cancer forming, right? And so that was one of the reasons why either it wasn't gaining weight or not being able to get pregnant. And so you could start detecting those type of abnormalities. Other things are, like we talked about yesterday, is your cow might be producing you a calf, but maybe the genetics is not all there, meaning your calves are never going to get the 600 pounders. They're always giving small babies and babies that are hard to raise, and it might be because of her milk production, those type of things. So you start to kind of understand those abnormalities, I guess, to be able to help you make that decision of I'm not seeing my calf gaining weight. What's her milk production like? Do I see mastitis? Really understanding what that cow might be going through to be able to make a decision to cull her out.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sadie. And thank you, everyone. Those were great questions. Before I close out today's webinar, I'd like to ask my NMSU colleague, Michael Patrick, to share a few words with us. Michael?
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Well, first of all, Jesse, congratulations on putting together another great webinar, and appreciate the work that you and our colleagues, our NAPS 6 and 7 staff have done in the last many months, coping with the pandemic to put together a series of very informative webinars. And on that point, I want to thank you, Benita, and your staff, particularly Brian and Felix and yourself, who've actually delivered probably a half a dozen webinars in the last several months that have been spot on with all the challenges that we're grappling with in terms of improving productivity and profitability of Navajo farmers and ranchers. Topics including land management, resource planning, and then like today's webinar, which focused on an important aspect of animal health management, livestock cattle in this case. You guys have really done a great job, and we really value our partnership with you and look forward to continuing that into the future. And to our attendees, a great turnout today, probably the largest that we've had in some time. Great questions. And so I think we're starting to have more contact with more folks out there. And that's a tribute to the NAPS 6 and NAPS 7 staff. And I think we're all beneficiaries of that. So thank you, Jesse, for the opportunity to say a few things.
No problem. And thank you, Michael. Thank you, Benita. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. If you would like more presentations like today, please visit us on our New Mexico NAPS 6 Facebook page and complete the survey that we have on there. Your opinions are very important to us and helps us with future programming. So if you have time, check it out, fill it out for us. And then on there, we also have some useful USDA program information and gardening livestock publications, also some how-to videos. We also distribute a monthly newsletter. If you would like to receive them, email me. My email address is there on the screen. Again, thank you for joining us. Please continue to be safe, wash your hands, wear your mask, and continue practicing social distancing. Okay, everybody, that concludes our presentation today. Signing off.